Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 31st, 2021 Abington Finance Committee meeting. We are meeting once again on Zoom, and we are continuing our meetings with department heads. This is actually our final meeting with one of the town departments. We have saved potentially the best for last with the Abington School Department. We have with us our school superintendent, Peter Schaefer, and our school assistant superintendent, Felicia Moschella. Peter and Felicia, welcome. Very glad to have you here with us. We always appreciate your time. The schools are the only department on the agenda. And then we have our normal business of liaison reports, correspondence, and reviewing minutes. Our next meeting will be next Wednesday, April 7th. We also have our town manager, Scott Lambiase, and our assistant town manager, Sue Moquin, on with us tonight. Scott and Sue, how are you guys doing?
Very good, thank you.
So I think we should get right into it with the schools, because the schools have a big budget. So
thank you. I want to thank
things away.
I want to thank you as the chair, and I also want to thank the members of the finance committee. And I say this, I probably say this every time I see you guys, and it's because I mean it. I don't think people understand how much work you do and how important you are to the taxpayers. And I know that there's a lot of information and line by line budgets, and appreciate you've given us the opportunity to present this information and answer any questions you might have. So what I can do is I can try to share my screen, and I just want to, if I could, share two different documents. The first one is our budget book, and I'll just very quickly, I promise I won't read it to you or go through it page by page, but I just want to, just at a high level, give you information about what's in there. Everyone, now I'm going to try to share my screen. I am not able to share my screen.
Ethan from Abington Cam, can you make it so that Peter can share screen? It is done.
Well, thank you. That was pretty cool and pretty quick.
Ethan is quick.
Now the pressure's on me to get it right. All right. Hopefully I'm sharing something you can see. Is it big enough?
I got a big table of contents and it just got smaller.
Oh, sorry.
Still
readable.
It's okay.
How's that?
That looks good.
Okay, so every member of the finance committee should have a copy of this. And just so that you know, Felicia and I, we want to answer your questions tonight. We'll answer your questions tomorrow and the next day. We're available to you whenever it is you'd like. But this document has a lot of information in it. And there are backup materials and a line by line budget and things like that in this document. It's got obviously a message, which I will speak about tonight. It's got the development and article planning schedule. It's got enrollment data and an overview of our class sizes as of October 1 of this year. That's obviously changed as we've moved forward. It changes every week or more, even more frequently than that. It's got a breakdown of our staffing. It's got a preliminary budget proposal by accounts, increases by major category, budget priorities such as staffing and textbooks. It's got our preliminary budget document, which is our line by line breakdown, and then various warrants that are probably what you've seen in terms of warrants from the school department in previous years. And so now I'm going to try to share a different document. Okay. And that's not going so well for me so far, because I'm used to Teams. So
With
Ethan,
unsharing and then
Yeah,
resharing.
stop share on the first one, and that should, unless it's also in the same browser.
so I can close it.
So if you hit the stop share button,
Yeah, I don't see a button.
that should, if you go back to Zoom, the options should be at the top.
It gives me 4 options. I can hide the thumbnail, or I can show different view. There it is. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. And so hopefully you're looking at a PowerPoint projection now, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
Abington Public Schools FY 2022 preliminary budget proposal.
So,
Right above that, Peter. Nope, back. Okay, you can do it that way too. Yep.
okay, do people see a slideshow?
No.
Okay, because now it's,
We see a slide.
well, I can do it that way too.
Yep, that's fine.
Can you see, is it big enough?
Peter, right where your cursor is down by where you made it bigger.
Yep.
Just go to the icon just to the left of that, and it just to the left right there. That should start your slideshow.
Yeah, and it's playing it on a different screen.
Okay. Then we'll just go with this.
Yeah, just go with it here. That's fine. Big enough for me, and I don't have glasses on right now, so it should be good.
I can see it. So,
How about this one? How am I doing here?
Good.
Okay, basically, the budget proposal that you have tonight has to take in a couple of different assumptions that we've made. And one of them is obviously for next year, for a full year of full in-person instruction for our kids. Nobody knows exactly what next year will bring. God help us if we have to do this again for another year. We're certainly planning to have full days, full instruction, pre-K through 12. And this budget is based on that. It also includes different areas to meet the needs of growing populations in the Abington Public Schools, and then certain built-in and fixed costs that automatically, like our contractual obligations, that automatically make our budgets go up. So in terms of, in terms of positions, so I spoke a little bit about increasing population sizes. We do a demographic study every single year. In 2016, there was a bubble in terms of births in Abington. That, coupled with the growth that Abington has seen, is giving us larger numbers at the earliest elementary levels. We all know, and you as residents know, that there's been quite a bit of growth in Abington that has brought with it children as people move into town. And the bubble of 2016 is arriving in Abington kindergarten age now in terms of the birth rate. Now, that looks to be a bubble in terms of the demographics that we've done. We continue to monitor through a demographic study and the actuals every single year so that we can anticipate what these fluctuations will be and try to plan for them accordingly. I apologize. I should have also mentioned the other population that we're seeing a growth in is in English language learners. So our top 3 priorities in terms of our budget are a teacher for English language learners at Abington High School, where we're seeing the largest number, and then a kindergarten teacher. But our kindergarten sections come with a paraprofessional and then a first grade teacher. So I'm 80 to 90% certain that our populations in kindergarten and grade 1 will provide us the number of students that we want to avoid class sizes in kindergarten of 27 and avoid class sizes in grade 1 of 26. But we won't know that for certain for another month, another 2 months. The reason we don't want to make these moves prior to knowing for sure is obviously that's not a responsible way to run a system. It's not a responsible way to handle money. And there's no need to do it when we can make these moves in hiring later. We could wait until June, July. We'd want to go out to get the best people. You just don't want to wait till August to get people for these positions. So that all those numbers will be confirmed. One of the challenges with kindergarten and first grade in particular is there are a number of people in private kindergartens or who don't have their children enrolled in kindergarten. So we call those places, our administrators at the Beaverbrook Elementary call to get a read and a radar on exactly what's coming, so we can anticipate these rosters. We do signups for students, and then so in kindergarten you never know for certain because it's not like in other classes where they just move to the next grade. Grade 1 can be the same way because people do not need to attend kindergarten. They're in private placements or they're not attending kindergarten, so we can have some surprise increases in grade 1. And honestly, if I am moving too fast or people want to stop me and ask me questions along the way, please, I welcome those, or I'll just keep soldiering on until somebody says, hold on. So
not a question, but just an anecdotal example for you. My youngest daughter did not go to Abington kindergarten because my wife worked at a kindergarten and took her with her. So, and then she came to Abington this year for first grade. So.
And so we see a lot of situations like that. And so, we get as much information from the privates as possible. And like I said, we track the birth rates, so we know we can anticipate as best we can. But you never know until you register people sometimes. So the next priorities are a special education teacher at the Beaverbrook Elementary School. This is for partial inclusion settings for moderate special needs children. This is not for separate classrooms. Those are classrooms where students are separate from the students in the mainstream for a large part of the day. The reason this is at this place is because when you're dealing with your earliest elementary learners and they're learning how to read and they struggle in those areas, the best thing that you can do long view for your system is to get those skills built up with those youngest children, because if they become good readers as they leave grade 3, you hopefully have them for the rest of their public school career. So an investment at the front end can save you trying to remediate and improves academic performance at the back end. A STEAM teacher, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. That's a project-based learning class that we have. Right now, we rotate some of our science staff at the middle school through that program to meet that need. And so it's bumped up our class sizes in our science classes. So adding a teacher there would reduce those science classes that are currently at 27 to 23.
I'm sorry, Peter, was the STEAM teacher, is that at
The middle school.
middle school? Okay,
Yep.
thank
Yep, no. Also, here's the thing about a middle school schedule. Everybody pretty much takes the same schedule. So scheduling gets very tight and we lose a lot of options. At the high school level, you have 4 years where people can select different classes and you can move things around in terms of offerings and give people the opportunity to take things over a number of years. At the middle school level, it's the last time a lot of students are going to take some of these classes, because once they get to high school level, they start to segregate themselves down to certain pathways. So this would improve the schedule at the middle school and as I've outlined, reduce class sizes in science. Computer network technician. So between students and staff, we have about 2,400 people using computers every day. You know that we've, fortunately, through the building project and through other funding mechanisms, we've really increased and improved our computer rollout, outlay, professional development. And there's always room for improvement in everything. But in terms of bracing for a pandemic, there's no such thing as a sweet spot when dealing with a pandemic. If there was one, we hit it because of the amount of technology we had in Abington. And so that helped us tremendously. So that technology is really kept alive by 2 technicians and then 1 person that provides education, professional development for all of those people that I just described, so we can maximize its use. That's not a lot of people taking care of a lot of computers and a lot of software. And so with the investment we've made in technology, having people that maximize its functionality improves that in the investment in the hardware and the software in terms of the use of all of those tools. So other positions that we considered that are not in the later pages in terms of the dollars and cents in the proposal. A history teacher, an English language learner, Portuguese teacher, a wellness teacher, another English language arts, another ELE teacher at the middle school, elementary teachers, including a specialized math, music, adjustment counselor, special education teacher, and another ELE tutor. We've been benefiting from increases in Chapter 70 money. We anticipate that those monies will continue as Massachusetts rebalances its Chapter 70 funding, which is the funding for education. That money is intended for, in terms of what we had to do to write to get that money, the Student Opportunity Act. It's intended for all of these purposes outlined in these growing populations. So we are in line with the reasons that we're getting, our proposal is in line with the reasons that we're getting this additional, I'm not gonna say additional funding because there's no such thing, but increased funding in support of education. I could argue that Abington has not been getting its fair share in money for education since I've been the superintendent of schools, and long before that, 1996, Ed Reform rebalanced things. They rebalanced it again a little bit later, 5 or 6 years ago. But this last balancing with the Student Opportunity Act has really benefited us in terms of our Chapter 70 money from the state of Massachusetts.
So Peter, just to pause right there and talk a little bit. Last year, we talked a lot about the Student Opportunity Act before things shut down. And there was sort of the promise of money coming in with that, and then things shut down. And I believe the money for that did not come. Is that?
No, it did.
Oh, it did. It did end up, no?
Felicia.
It did come, but we got money, but it wasn't part of the Student Opportunity Act. It was because of our increases in enrollment
Right.
and increases in ELE population, special education.
Right.
This Student Opportunity Act is in addition to what we received last year.
Correct. So last year, I think we were looking at somewhere in the vicinity of $1 million Student Opportunity Act funds that we were very much hoping for, that we were originally planning for, and then when COVID struck, that got struck and didn't come, and so that was part of our adjustment last year.
So in the fall, we got the increase in Chapter 70 money that we had anticipated. That was different than Student Opportunity.
Right. Exactly.
So we did get that. I just want to make sure that we're super clear. Like, we did get that money into this fiscal year, into FY21's fiscal year. It was part of the Chapter 70 formula. This is in addition to the Chapter 70 formula. We got $800,000 increase. I believe it was 800 when the final state budget was balanced for this year.
Okay. So my question was going to be, is that part of the formula now going forward?
Yes.
Good.
No, I don't want to move too fast. Good, thank you for the question.
I just wanted to provide that clarity around the Student Opportunity Act in particular,
Yeah.
because there was a lot of press around it being not funded last year, but we still received additional Chapter 70 money outside of the Student Opportunity Act.
Right.
So this is the sheet that breaks down by major category in the budget book, where we're seeing the increases that we're budgeting for the next fiscal year. In the salary account, the contract, the Chapter 150E is and the contractual obligations. So these are the contracts we know we have, or that we are currently working on in anticipation and an enablement to move forward for next year of $598,323. The new positions that I outlined, just the ELE teacher, the kindergarten, the grade 1, the I'm going to go with my cheat sheet, special education teacher, and the STEAM teacher and the computer technician are the $360,690 for an increase to the salary account of $959,013. Programs with other districts are the special education tuition increases that we anticipate. Those are both increases in the costs of the placements we have in place now. There are adjustments, there are small incremental adjustments that are made at those placements. And the best estimate we can make at the students that we have in the district that could potentially be going out of the district to other placements outside of Abington. We do our best to create programs in the district to service the needs of our special education students, because it's the best way to give them the best education possible. And it's also the most affordable way, but sometimes you can't do that because the needs of certain students are so great that they need specialized programs. And so that's the anticipated increase of $402,999. The circuit breaker offset at 65%. Increases the offset. So we subtract that out of the increase page at $76,508. That number also fluctuates. Both of these numbers are probably the numbers that fluctuate the most in our budget. Special education tuitions. So if you remember, this is a snapshot really as of January 1st. And these are placements that can change every week. And so what we will do as we approach town meeting, we will look to fine tune, especially in this area. And then the state will give us as much information as possible. We'll get as much information as we can from the state about circuit breaker. To be honest with you, right now, nobody's talking about circuit breaker because they're talking about COVID funding. They're talking about the reopening of schools. They're talking about all of the safety pieces to COVID that you know all too well, and you don't want me to spend any time on tonight. For an increase in this area of $326,491.
Sorry, Peter, quick question. What was the circuit breaker reimbursement last year?
I'm gonna have to cheat and phone a friend.
Felicia.
Felicia.
Yep. So it's 70, right now we're sitting at 72%. That may increase to 75% as we get towards the end of the year. There's a pot of money set aside at the state level for circuit breaker, and it's supposed to be reimbursed at 75%, but it does adjust. 65% is the number that in January that we were told it was recommended that we budget for, was at 65%. And I don't anticipate that going down And as we get closer and as people start talking about the state budget, that may increase.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Can you please remind us what the circuit breaker is?
So after you spend the dollars in special education in a given year, in the following year, you get reimbursed on the dollar for the dollars above the threshold has been about, Felicia,
It's 49, a little over 49,000.
$49,000. So at 65%, it means for every dollar spent over $49,000, we get back 65 cents on the dollar in the following year.
It's very similar to the veterans benefits where we get 75% back in the following year of what was spent.
Thank you.
Good question. So other school services, transportation, Felicia's going out very shortly for a bus bid. Every 3 years, Massachusetts Public Schools go out to bid. You can extend the 3-year contract a year. You can extend it another year after that. So you can get 5 years out of a contract. We've done that. The reason you try to do that is because you generally don't see major increases when you extend the contract. It's when you go out to bid for a new contract that you see increases. So this is Felicia's best estimate on what that contract will come in for when we go out to bid. And then special education transportation is another moving target depending on the placement of students. $21,678 to provide the service for our special education students. Those are both in the district or to out of district placements. That's the increase to that account for a total of $186,122. So this total increase of $1,471,626 is not in alignment with what the leadership team at the town hall has with Scott and Sue and their team. But I know we're going to work towards getting ourselves to a place where there's consensus over the next couple of months. Before I conclude, I thank the finance committee. I also want to thank the team at the town hall for the work with us and the collaboration we've had and the relationship we have with them. You always hold your breath a little bit when there's a change in leadership, and I'm happy to report I don't feel like I'm holding my breath anymore.
Good to hear.
It's been a good team to work with here in Abington. So, and I got to tell you, and I can say this, I've not always been able to say that with some of the, if you go back far enough in Abington. So I'll continue to be positive and move forward because we have a great team. And this is that provides you with an overview of our preliminary budget proposal.
All right. What questions do people have? What areas do you want to either get more information on or clarify or focus?
Did I just bring everybody back?
Yep, we're all back. Should I go right to Barbara?
Well,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, I am going to ask if you had to today, you had to pare down, where would you start and why?
So in terms of positions, we need, I think you saw in that first slide, our numbers right now with our English language learners. It was on the slide. I don't know if I said it. We're at about a 1-to-34 ratio. That's got to be a priority for us. Those are students that are integrated into classrooms with our teachers, but then they also have standalone classes. And the goal there is for those students to, while they're learning English, learn all of the other subjects. And so that would be our first priority. Our second priority and third priority would be those elementary class sizes. After that, in my mind, my recommendation to the committee, to the school committee, would be the positions after that, you know, we would be good to have. You saw, you know, it's a special education position for kids to improve primarily in reading. But that's not having 27 kindergartners in a room. We can't have 27 kindergartners in a room. The next position was that science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics position. 27 kids in a middle school science class isn't great. But when you only got so much money, that would be another position that would go on the back burner. And then the last one was the technology person to assist us in keeping things running. Again, when you're looking at 1 in 34 kids learning English, and then you're looking at 1 in 27 5-year-olds in a room, those are your priorities. And so those other 3 positions I would recommend we don't move forward with. Other areas, you know, I couldn't promise adjustments in special education, but we always look to rework the number once we get as closer to town meeting. And, you know, sometimes you can be more aggressive with that. It's just how much of a chance do you want to take with that? And so that would be another area. Hopefully circuit breaker comes up. That would help. And so those would be the first areas in terms of narrowing a gap between what you saw and what we might have to live within.
I appreciate it. And I want to say too, that I appreciate all that you have been doing, you and Felicia and all of the administration. It has been a really tough year, and having a senior in high school this year, and all of it's been very challenging. And I don't think any of the decisions that any of you have had to make have been easy, but I appreciate all of the work and the just everything that you guys have done to keep things at normal, or you know, the best education that the kids can get under the circumstances.
Thank you. We all know it's not what we want to do for kids. We're following all the rules that we're supposed to follow, that none of us made. It's a town that we all have a tremendous amount of loyalty to, and a love. I mean, I can say it because I mean a love for. And I absolutely work with the best team of people I could ever work with. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that the kids in Abington are just awesome. They're just, I can insert the word friggin' awesome.
Well, we've had some very, very good experiences here with teachers that have definitely gone above and beyond, and it's definitely appreciated.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that too. As a parent, I mean, we couldn't be more thankful that our daughter is going to the Abington school system as well. All things considered in this crazy year. And again, thank you so much for what's must have been one of the most difficult years in your career, I would presume.
Yeah, all of us though, right? We're all ready for this to be over.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those that kind and supportive. It means a lot having you say that. It does. But we've all been through it together, and so I'm looking forward to us all not being through it anymore.
Oh,
Right? Just being done with it.
So we all.
I mean, those poor kids. I mean, you know, we just want so much more for these kids, and so it's coming.
Yep.
And this will not define them. We're not going to let that happen.
Good stories for them to tell. But Chris, I believe you had something.
Yeah, one thing, the middle school science, is that because of wasn't there a new state curriculum for science? Is that part of that?
So one of the things that happened is there was an increase in STEM and STEAM, and that's integrating all of those subjects together with science in a more project-based way. And so yes, STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. We add that art component to it for the creative piece. That has been built out in Massachusetts over the last, I think, if I get it wrong, I want to say it's in the last 3 or 4 years that's been updated.
And the amount for the new positions, does that include the, and I know the teachers contribute pension. I don't know if the town does anything, but does that include sort of the other expenses that go with hiring somebody? The health insurance, things like that?
So great question. The pension piece is separate. Individuals make their own contributions to that, and then the state puts money into the MTRS or the Plymouth County systems for that for the employees. The health is carried in our town budget through the town manager and assistant town manager, and Sonia carry that piece for the entire town. So Felicia, what are we missing in terms of benefits that are in that number other than salary? That's
No,
it.
just, yep, salary, health insurance, those are the two expenses when you hire a new person.
So that shows up somewhere else.
Yep.
The health insurance does in the town budget.
That wouldn't be showing up right now because we're still at two different numbers between the town and the school.
Well,
Correct.
And the town's health insurance covers all town employees in all departments, with possibly the exception of water.
Correct.
But it covers all of the departments. So everything gets grouped together there. So each individual department, you don't see the health insurance, but part of their budget. When we add a position, we don't know if a person's going to take town health insurance or not.
But it adds probably.
But it adds
probably 10 grand.
Yeah, yes, definitely, easily. It adds to, when we do add positions, it adds to the health insurance budget line item, which Sue and Sonia are very good at keeping track of and making sure that if a department is looking to add another position or multiple positions, that's being factored into the rest of the budget so that we're not overbalancing or going out of balance on the budget because of that portion of it.
Thank you.
I had one more question.
Just one?
Just one. Because the school year starts in September, unlike the
Fiscal.
well, unlike the fiscal year, but as far as COVID assistance, do you know, are you hearing that you would be receiving additional funds due to issues still surrounding the pandemic for the upcoming school year?
Yes, and we're working through the funding that we've been given and that we have right now to open next week and then the week after. Tables, custodial, recess supervision, tenting, because we needed to feed some students outside due to square footage. Once you take your mask off, you've got to be at 6 feet. Those are all being covered by those additional funds. We do not anticipate feeding kids in tents when this is over. So those things will fall off of the books. And then there is additional funding for next year for some of the moves that we might have to make as we go into the unknown. Hopefully the shot beats the variance and we're more back to normal next year. But there's funding for that.
Thank you.
There's also and to add to that, there is some of that funding for things like remediation, after school programs, summer programs for the upcoming school years. So as you're well aware, you don't want to use those funds to backfill your operating budget because
You're not
when the funds aren't there, the laying people off, or you need to find other funding sources. So trying to be really aware of that.
So with those funds, we've been planning, for example, a summer program like we haven't had before for students who are experiencing academic difficulties. So there'll be criteria for them to be invited. We may have to actually run some transportation for them to get them into school. And so that's something that we've never been able to do before because it doesn't fit in the budget. But that's what these funds are for, to make up for those deficits for kids that are struggling.
to help.
Yep, help them recover academically from this, because the last thing in the world we want to, again, we do not want to let COVID define any of our kids. And so if they were lost in the internet or whatever over these last year, we really want to bring them in and create a thoughtful program for them over the summer so they can hit the ground running in September, and that these gaps widen for them and they fall further and further behind, and then we lose them.
So I know this is a little off topic, but with the same thing said, that where we're getting funds through the town, those funds are also like not to say that it's future funds. It's funds to fix what we're losing right now.
Right.
You know, just like what you guys are doing with the school, and the funds that they're giving you is for what you're losing. So just, you know, I know we had a meeting with the Plymouth County Cares the other day, and they were talking about how money is coming into the town. And I've heard through many people that, oh, we're getting more money. No, it's money from what we've lost. It's not money to go forward. So
we don't want to create funding cliffs that can't be sustained.
Right.
We don't want
to reiterate that you guys, what you're saying is true.
Thank you, Sue. You know, like a summer program like this isn't something we'd be able to do every year, but it's one-time money. So we want to do it in terms of recovery, and then not increase the operational costs or the deficit.
Thank you.
And do we have to spend that money?
I'll let Felicia answer that because my dogs, I don't know if you can hear that.
So do we have to spend it? I guess we don't have to spend it. It's money that has been allocated from the federal government through the state of Massachusetts, through the Department of Education, based on a formula, based on the needs in your community. So we're allocated a certain amount of money to be spent over there's one that's one fiscal year, one that's over the next two, and we're anticipating one over the next 3 fiscal years. So I can assure you that we would not waste money. That's not how we operate. We would be planning to use it judiciously. We haven't actually got the grant application for ESSER 3. So we're not even sure how we're supposed to spend it. There are criteria. You can't just spend the money on anything. There's some infrastructure pieces, there's some learning loss pieces, there's some social emotional pieces, all that are required within the grant. So will we absolutely use it all? I can't say that. I can tell you that whatever we do use will be done very judiciously and planned and not wasteful.
So, I mean, if I had my way, if I had a magic wand, what I'd do is I would do all the things we need to do to help kids recover from what they just lost. I would make COVID go away, and I'd have a surplus of money in that account that I'm not going to call a surplus, because if we backfill the technology we've been using, that's now getting old, because the building, believe it or not, is going on its next year's going to be its 5th year, which means that those computers that we first purchased are 5 years old. If we can purchase additional, if we can replace the technology we've been using, and that's legal and appropriate, and then I don't go to COVID jail, that's what those are one of the things I'd want to do.
Right, after we do the other
Things.
recovery thing too.
I wouldn't want to leave any money on the table and not have it benefit the way that it's intended to be, in a responsible way, without creating a funding cliff. So I'm guilty as charged of trying to do that.
No, and I know this wasn't your specific decision, so it's not, it's just, if you look around, the private schools didn't really raise tuition. They didn't do, you know what I mean? And so I'm trying to understand, again, I don't have any issues with it, because if it's going to be coming into the town, it needs to be spent. I don't know. And I'm a private person, private guy, so I don't understand the public stuff as much. But for me, I guess we didn't really have a choice whether to close or not. But I don't know. That I agree with you. The kids are hurt, including mine, and I don't know how to fix it. So I'm not sure money does it, but I'm willing to see whatever anybody thinks can help.
So let me just speak to the private piece just a second, and how I believe that's worked. And this is just my opinion. If you've got class sizes of 15 to 18 in a private school, and people are throwing down money to make sure that the size of your classroom is 15 to 18 students, and you bring them all back in a room at 6 feet apart, that's what we did, but we have twice as many kids in a room, so we can only send half at a time. So they did a nice job of bringing those students in at 6 feet apart with masks, but they had they probably had about half the students that we did. And so the reason we had to go to a hybrid model is because, in terms of square footage, we couldn't do it at 6 feet apart. And then, you fast forward from September, October, November, and you find out that the masks are working, and students aren't catching it at school, and there's a vaccine. Then it makes sense for us to go back full in person, because the data now shows that kids we don't feel are going to catch it at 3 feet apart. But there was no private school that was at 3 feet apart. They're not today. We will be next week. But that's based on the Department of Public Health and the CDC and the guidelines changing. They just changed our transportation for our bus students just about 3-4 weeks ago. 26 students could fit in a bus 3-4 weeks ago. And now we can run buses with 2 students or 3 students in a seat, depending on the age, which we couldn't even do before. So those changes made this possible. Not to take anything away from the private schools, but they didn't have the same challenges we had in terms of bodies and square footage.
Sure, thanks.
Sorry, I lied. I do actually have one more question.
Right ahead, Barbara.
Is there anyone else that has a question? I don't want to.
Oh, we'll jump in after you.
Okay, so I'm wondering, when the kids do go back to school full in person and it's 3 feet apart, does the contact tracing rules change?
No,
Not yet.
not yet. We anticipate we're going to probably double the amount of quarantining that's gone on.
Well, that's,
And the reason I say that is because we're having people identify as positive, and you've got, you've got X number now, you're going to double the number of people. So why wouldn't we double the number of students that are required to quarantine? That's the bad news. The good news is they're not catching it at school. They're not identifying as positive that they've caught it through the tracing at school.
And when they're quarantining under those circumstances, where you will have so many kids quarantining, are they going to be able to remotely?
So good question. K through 4, we will not have live streaming. And I'll explain why. If a whole classroom, K through 4, is quarantined, then the teacher will be able to teach remotely. So you wouldn't need to live stream. Also, at K through 4, because of the age of the students, if they can go out and read under an oak tree around the Beaver Brook, we want the teachers to have the freedom to do that, to have flexible groups, flexible spaces. And that's the best environment for our kids, especially at that age, because you know they're so little. 5 through 12, if people are in families with someone in the household who is medically fragile or compromised in some way, or there's a quarantine situation as designated by the administration, there will be a list that will be able to continue to live stream for those purposes. However, the focus of the teacher is really even more now than ever going to be on the students that are in front of them. Because as you can imagine, you know, I shared some numbers with you. You could have a teacher with 25, 26, 27 or more students in a classroom and 2 or 3 students listening and watching online. And so their focus really needs to be on the students that are in person.
Well, I'm just thinking if with 3 feet apart and no change in the contract tracing rules, that a classroom with 27 kids in it that ends up with 1 positive in it is going to end up with probably about half of the class at home. And will that half of the class be able to still do live stream at home?
Yes. Medically fragile, quarantine students, there'll be a list of students still able to access that live stream at 5 through 12.
Thank you.
These are all really good questions. I wish I could tell you COVID was gone.
Can you say the reasons again why it's not the 1 through 4?
Because at that age level, if the entire room is quarantined, and that's what happens at that age level, they're all able to learn remotely.
With the teacher.
With the teacher. They would go remote during that time period. And when you've got small numbers of students out of that classroom, so this is not quarantine, this is for other reasons. There's more of a benefit because of the age to give the teacher the flexibility to go outside. There's no Wi-Fi outside. There's no point in connecting on a laptop when they're outside reading as a class. So K through 4, where there's such a, you know, the benefit of learning online is smaller for K through 4 than it is for 5 through 12. Those students will not have live streaming.
What?
We don't want to keep the 25 students that show up for school inside sitting in rows when they could all be outside learning together in a better environment, because there are 1 or 2 kids home who are in kindergarten who really aren't going to benefit, or 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd through 4th grade from that live streaming experience that much. The good that you do for the 25 that are in person at that age level, when you have that flexibility, is better than the minimal good that you do for the 1 or 2 students that would live stream in at that age level, if that makes any sense.
It makes sense. I just don't understand it as much, just because we have kids going 2 days a week and 2 days a week. So on the other days they are on that. And I don't know, I'm making the assumption there are going to be people that test positive because it happens every day. So I don't know why that would change that much. I understand going outside, and maybe they haven't done that previously, but currently the kids are in class, right now.
But you're gonna have a kindergarten teacher with 25 kids in front of them.
Yeah.
So what?
Right now-
Sorry, right now they have 12, 13,
Yeah,
14.
right.
And so with 25 kids in front of you, the 5-year-old that's watching on TV, what are they gonna get when they're watching a room full of vibrating, because that's what they do when they like hover over a space and they're like balls of motion. I don't know what another 5-year-old's going to get from watching that online. Right now, there's 12 and 12. So you can really design or 15 and 15 or 14 and 14. You really can design it differently for small numbers like that. When you've got 25 in front of you, 25 5-year-olds in front of you, you're not even going to have close to what you have now with 14 and 14 in 2 different places. Does that make any sense?
More than one is too much for me. So yeah, I hear the point.
Me too. But when the whole class gets quarantined, they'll all be learning remotely together.
So basically what you're saying is if somebody pops positive, everybody's going home.
If somebody's positive and the whole room is close contacts,
Yeah,
they're all going to go home and they're all going to learn remotely during that quarantine period.
got it. Okay.
Now, if somebody was at a hockey tournament, and not to pick on hockey, I love hockey, but if somebody's in a hockey tournament and they tested positive and they don't come to school, they're going to learn remotely while everybody else is in. They're not going to be able to learn live stream while everybody else is in school.
Yeah, I got it.
Someone described that as the old chickenpox model, when you were out of school for a week and the teacher provided you the work that you missed when you were out of school for a week or 6 days. Be like pre-COVID times.
Yep.
Well, about how many people are on the quarantine list? How many students? Well, I suppose teachers too, for that matter. On an average, the last couple months.
It's been all over the place. Please don't hold me. It's been as low as, a dozen. It's been as high as 150, 180. I could look that up and give you a better number. It's really
That's kind of what I was, because I've been under the impression, just hearing around my house, that it's around 100 is fairly typical. So
yeah, and it's followed the exact same spikes that we see on TV. After the holidays, after everybody comes back from Miami Beach right now, and there's variants around. I mean, they're catching it after these holiday breaks when people are mixing. And those have been, our spikes have followed.
I'll say I definitely don't get as many emails per day from you as I used to.
Can I please use this opportunity to encourage everybody, if your child is sick, if they have a runny nose, if they have a headache, if they have chills, if they have any flu-like symptoms, to please keep them home and have them tested.
I'm home.
Do not send them to school. Do not send them to a sleepover. Please keep them home and have them tested. This week alone, I know of 2 students that I don't really feel good, and they went and got tested and tested positive. Not super sick, just didn't feel well. Had a headache, had the chills. So please keep your children home.
I know of several people, including one who's here with us on this meeting tonight, who are dealing with COVID right now. So it's definitely not gone. Definitely don't treat it like it's gone.
if you get kids if you're an uncle who have to live with the kids who are in school, be careful.
Well, I hope if there are symptoms, they're minimal, and I hope everybody gets well really quickly.
Peter, couple of questions. Last year, before all of this came down, we were looking at adding 8 additional positions for the school department. I think through attrition, we were originally looking at cutting all of those 8 when things got worse as far as budget season went. I think through attrition, you ended up adding maybe 2 or 3 of the positions you were looking for. Of the leftovers that did not get added, how do those match up to what the needs are this year?
Without looking at them side by side, I'm going to say they're pretty close.
I'm trying to remember back to what the positions were, and I know that English language learning was definitely part of the list.
It's really about the growing populations.
Yeah.
Which is again directly attributed to our increase in Chapter 70 that we saw this year and the Student Opportunity Act for next year. It's directly tied to those populations.
Hopefully what you're seeing, makes sense in terms of what we're all experiencing and seeing on the ground.
And then next question. I was looking through the budget document. Where are the athletic department numbers on there? I couldn't find them, but there's a lot of numbers and lines on there.
Felicia, do you want to?
Yep. So let me find it and then I'll tell you. So I don't know how your sheet is set up, but I think it's the same document.
It's the school FY 2022 preliminary budget document.
Yep. So page 3 in the second box.
Yep.
Or the first box, you have coaches. The very
Page 3 of
top
the spreadsheet.
in the spreadsheet.
Okay. Sorry. I was on page 3 of page 3.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Do you want me to share my screen again?
Only if other people are as picky as I am and wanting to actually see where that is. You know what? I can actually share my screen so that you can guide me properly.
Sorry.
Oh, nope. Go ahead. You got it.
Yeah.
I hit the button just as you were saying that.
So next page. Right there in the blue is the coaches' salaries.
Okay.
And then below that in the next box, about halfway down in the brown, I'm pointing at it on my computer screen like that's helpful.
I think it's green. I think it's green, Felicia.
Yeah,
Oh, it's blue here. I see. Yeah.
Yep, blue up there. And then if you go about 8 lines down, you see transportation athletics, down from that. Game officials, game expenses, and then the offset for the user fees.
Okay. And so one of my questions on this is, with the weird year that it has been, I know having children in the athletic department, I spent less money attending games this year. How is that impacting the budget for the school?
So that's a great question. There absolutely is no gate fees that we've collected this year. We've also had a decrease in the length of the season. So transportation, decrease in officials. And there's been, I don't know exactly where we are in terms of users for right now, because with the spring 2 sports, that definitely increased our use of athletics. But the expenses have definitely been less this year, which have helped offset the decrease in gate receipts, for example.
So just in terms of custodial and cleaning, and there are other expenses, the amount of sanitizing and product that's being used is substantial.
Yes.
So
What other questions do people have?
I do. Typically, what are the gate fees used for? Like when you go to a basketball game and you pay to get in, or when you go to the football game and you pay to get in?
Sure. So those help offset the cost of running the events. So you have the the people who work the game, the clock, the crowd control, ticket takers, and then it goes in offsets on that line, the offset line. That's user fees and gate fees. That's put together and help to offset the entire cost of the athletic program.
Okay, so the user fees that were paid this year.
Yep.
Um,
They help pay for the coaches, for they help pay for the transportation, they help pay for game officials, and then there's also there's general fund revenue that's also used to supplement the user fees and the gate receipts.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else with questions, comments, areas of the budget that you need looked at?
if there's something, I said this at the beginning, Felicia and I are around too. So certainly
And-
want to answer people's questions, but please know all it takes is an email or a phone call, and we'll find you whatever it is that you want, and the backup, whatever you need.
And I will say from my personal experience, very responsive to questions. Really appreciate how quickly you get back to me on things. And
No, I like the
Then
conversation
you can-
about user fees. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Like the conversation about user fees, that's really important to know, because I've got 3 kids, and I stood in the line and I paid my dough like everybody else. And you're like, what are these people doing with my money? They charge the user fee. I'm going to see my kid. Why are they collecting money from me? So to assume that those questions aren't out there and leave them unanswered would be wrong. And so I really appreciate the open, the questions, so we can tell you where the money's going, how it moves.
Next question for me is solar panels.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what our offset has been. I know that we've got credits, that the deal's working in terms of the credits we've been acquiring. Actually talked to the solar people today about credits. I don't know if either Scott or Felicia or Sue would do a better job than I would about, because this was bundled with a project also that Abington has in another community with solar panels in one agreement with the solar company.
I mean, I can talk for, or Scott, you can, did you want to?
Actually, I was gonna defer to you or Sue myself, because it's,
Except, is that part of the agenda to be talking about?
What was the question, Sue?
Like solar panels, was that part of the agenda that we can be discussing on this meeting?
But
Well,
I think
my question was as it pertains to the panels with the new school, and
well, I can tell you they're working. I think
Like
we're
budget
making-
wise,
Sorry.
yes,
like budget wise?
yes.
Okay,
So we're generating, is it half a meg annually? During the height of the summer clear days, it's carrying the majority of the load. But what happens is that the real value in them are in credits that we earn with another, that we've bundled with a project with the town, with another solar field. And I couldn't speak to how much those credits are helping the town overall. I can just tell you that the one we have on the new building is functioning and contributing to that benefit the way it was designed. And I can find more specific answers about that. But in terms of the overall to the town, I wouldn't be able to answer that question off the top of my head.
Overall, the panels from that are on the school are more than paying their weight.
Absolutely. We had estimated.
It was a very good investment and definitely saving year after year costs for us.
Absolutely.
Correct.
And you know, they're good for decades in terms of the benefit. They very slowly lose their value in terms of their ability to capture light energy over decades, and so they continue to function. I know that I remember our original estimate was it was going to save about $40,000 a year, but I couldn't tell you with the way the credit market works with this bundled arrangement the exact. Just I want to be responsible. If I don't know, I'd rather say I don't know than just throw things out there.
Okay.
And just to add, like operationally, the company that we're using has been very responsive. If there's been any issues, we had a small leak at one point and they came right out, moved the panels. We had the roof repaired. They came and put the panels back. So in terms of how our building operates with the solar panels, it's been very successful.
Good. I think in a more normal year, I'd be asking about how well building maintenance and field maintenance and things like that are going with the new building as we're getting further in and understanding what the costs are. But I don't think we used it normally this year. So.
But I do have to say, since you brought that up, our custodial and maintenance teams at our buildings have just done yeoman's work this year, between the cleanings, the moving of furniture, the new setups that we've had, anticipating, you know, our second school reopening on Monday and then a week from Monday. They've really done an amazing job, and I think it's really important that I thank them. So.
Food service, you know, our paraprofessionals, our tutors,
transportation. We redid all of our bus routes for next week.
Yeah, and all of the work with meals.
Yep.
That are the pickup of meals.
Pick up for meals on the remote for students on their remote days.
Yep.
And you know, they've been packaging food in ways they never thought they'd be packaging, and being creative in what they were sending home. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, Peter, sorry.
No, we've got people that care and take pride in what they do, and they've, you know, we're lucky.
Joe, Justin, anything from you guys?
No, very thorough presentation. So, question.
Anyone else with questions? Areas you want clarification on? Or?
I'm good.
Barbara, you've had how many years of looking at finance committee budgets?
A lot of years. I think it's tipping towards 10, 11-ish. Definitely.
I think this is my 7th or 8th, and you've been on for a bit longer than I have. So.
And I've been your recording secretary for 22 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, but I still, I will say that every year I do still come across something that I either didn't hear before, didn't know. Always something. Always
Well,
learning.
What I said at the beginning, I meant all of the level of detail that you dive into. And I know I know none of you have a salary in any of these line items that gives you any money for all this work. So you do it voluntarily, so I give you a lot of credit.
As a variety of people have said on this, we very much appreciate the work that you guys have done. Not just as far as the finances of the department, but for the children of the town. You guys really have put in yeoman's work this year. And you do every year, but this year more than most. So thank you.
Well, thanks again. We have a great team. Everyone from our custodians to everybody we've mentioned, our teachers, but we just want to do so much more for the kids than we're doing. So it does feel a little funny when people say that, because you just want to do more than you're doing. So
actually, I did have one more question that reminded me of that I was going to ask earlier. And this is from being in the same position that Barbara is in with a senior in this crazy year, is moving forward. Because obviously it's not the appropriate time this year, but moving forward, is there any thought to Abington hosting things like SATs and ACTs? So it was very difficult we had several scenarios where my son was signed up for either SATs or ACTs at another school, and the week before that school got shut down, and so the testing got canceled. And it's very tricky to try and find a place for him to take his standardized tests.
that is something that we consider doing every year based on the circumstances of that given year. So that doesn't mean I can tell you that we're going to do it next year.
Yep.
I know that we will continue to consider it.
Okay.
I can tell you graduation will likely look like last year's graduation. They came out with new guidelines, and that is they came out with new guidelines for graduation, and they are really what we did last year.
New guidelines.
So
well, from all accounts that I heard from last year, you guys pulled it off well under the circumstances. So, anyone have anything else? All right, Peter and Felicia, thank you both very much for your time.
thank you again.
appreciate it.
Please reach out if you need something.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Pop the agenda back up. So moving back to the other parts of our agenda, we have our liaison reports. Are there any reports from anyone? Not seeing anyone popping up. Russ? Nope. Russ went back onto camera right then. You threw me off there, Russ. Correspondence, Deb, is there anything?
Nope.
Review of minutes. We have meeting minutes from not last week, 2 weeks ago, St. Patrick's Day, that were sent around to everybody.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 17th, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Barbara and a second by Russ. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes from March 17th? Without any, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes of March 17th?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstaining?
Greg and Joe.
Joe abstains. Greg approves.
Greg wasn't here for,
And Greg abstains.
thank you. All right, what about 2/24?
Yep, I was going to say February 24th meeting minutes.
Barbara and Justin are the only ones that can't vote on those.
Right, then we're good. We sent these out quite a while ago, and everybody has looked over them, and we've tried for about 3 or 4 different meetings to have the right number of people to vote on them. We finally do now.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve from Chris, second from Russ. Any discussion on the February 24th meeting minutes? There being none, all those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from February 24th? All those opposed? Abstaining? Justin, Barbara? They are approved.
Thank you.
All right. Making some progress. Our next meeting will be next Wednesday, April 7th. We will have the South Shore VOTEC back in to go over the work they've been doing on their debt and borrowing plan that we discussed with them when they were in. I know they've been that Sue has spent a lot of time working with them, and Sue, we really appreciate that. And we will also at that point go over where things stand in the budget right now. I don't want to take more time and have Scott and Sue have to do that at this last minute in the meeting unasked. So we'll go over that next week. So we'll do South Shore VOTEC and sort of the state of the world and where we stand for when town meeting might be and what the warrant is looking like and all those fun kind of things.
And Matt, maybe you want to invite the capital planning committee in to present to you. They're meeting tomorrow night, so they can present what their expected findings or recommendations are to the board.
That would be great.
And also, Scott, we had a couple of things for the finance committee to do, finance committee transfers. So if you want to.
Yeah, we could toss those on the agenda too, I think.
Yeah.
All right. So before I send the agenda out, I will run that by you guys probably tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Okay.
And it's Joe and Greg that are representatives on the capital planning committee, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Do you guys, with your meeting tomorrow night, do you want to mention to them that we would like to have them in attendance? At least someone as a addition to our representatives.
Yeah,
tomorrow
if you want, I can email Alex. Someone just came up during the meeting where I won't be able to attend that meeting tomorrow. But I can email Alex and see what he says.
Yep.
Well, Sue and I will be on the meeting too, so we'll be able to
All right.
have that conversation with them.
I didn't want to make you have to do that, Scott. So,
Well, it's our idea.
yes.
I guess we have to do it.
That's okay. So, as long as they know.
So just so you're on the radar, we have a roof issue at the fire department, and we have the police chief search committee that we need to figure out what we're going to fund for. So those are 2 things that you might want to put on your next agenda as well.
Okay. Sorry, just taking quick notes. Right. Does anyone have anything else for tonight?
Motion to adjourn?
It's a motion to adjourn
Second.
and a second. Is there any discussion? Not any? All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and have a great night and a good week.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.